Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Season 2, this is specifically Part 1 for those that don't know how I review this, is about Rudy sort of recovering from the trauma of Eris having left him, but not really, because he has he ends up in sort of like a severe depression, where he's looking for his mom, and he ends up in the north, the icy north. And he ends up encountering these adventuring groups that he ends up going on adventures with, and he meets a new girl named Sarah, who he starts to have a romantic relationship with. And then that ends up going to complete shit because he puts his foot in his mouth. And also because, and this is the real crux of the arc, the whole season is basically dedicated to this, Rudy has erectile dysfunction. And somehow, the arc about our main character having erectile dysfunction is not only what I would argue the best arc of the show so far, it is also better than most anime. Anyway, so Rudy has erectile dysfunction, ruins it with this girl, almost kills himself, and then he ends up getting an invitation to magic school based on the recommendation of Sylvie, who's still disguising herself as Silent Fitz and working under the princess. So he's like, well, I have no reason to go to this fucking magic school. But he does find out that they do find his mom. And I think they find that out from the elf girl who apparently has a curse where she has to fuck a bunch of people or she dies. We later learn that this season, whatever. So he ends up attending magic school and he meets a bunch of quirky characters. And this is almost a sort of slice of life thing. He ends up going based on that prompt and the fact that the man god is like, hey, you can fix your erectile dysfunction if you go to magic school. So he's like, all right, fucking, I'm going to magic school. So he ends up going to magic school to try and learn about the Mana disaster that caused a bunch of teleportation incidents. And while he's there, he's interacting with Fitz, who spends the entire season basically in disguise, except for a little bit towards the end. So anyway, there's this whole arc where he's questioning his sexuality. It's actually pretty fucking good. He encounters the nieces of Ghislaine. He re-encounters the carving guy who was really into his figures before. There's this whole romantic subplot between, oh god, what's her name? Annalise, the slutty elf girl, and this dude named Cliff, who's just kind of an asshole. He encounters the Demon King and he fucking one-shots him. It's a fucking crazy ride full of quirky, lovable characters in this weird-ass school setting, all underpinning the fact that our main character has depression and erectile dysfunction and is really distraught about everything that is happening in his fucking life. We get a fucking bomb drop about the origin of the Mana disaster when he meets up with Nanahoshi, which is the girl that was working with Orsted back in season 1. So yeah, this is fucking great. Can't say enough good things about it. There are some things that I feel were a bit off in this season. And from what I can tell, from what I've seen from people who read the light novel, I think part of this is a light novel adaptation issue. Oh, on Crunchyroll, it's still got this fucking grainy effect. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if it's a streaming issue. It doesn't happen when I watch anything else. So I'm not sure if it's with the show or if Crunchyroll is a shit website. But, well, I know Crunchyroll's a shit website. Anyway, doesn't really matter. So there's this one scene where they buy a slave and they just what if you buy a slave? And then they're we go buy a slave. And this happens a bunch in usually edgier, shittier Isekai series. And it just seems they sort of glaze over the moral implications of this. But from what I've heard in the light novel, the Rudy has a fucking shit fit and then they end up just settling on this. So I think there was a cut there. Also, the nieces of Ghislaine apparently have to get challenged to duels and shit, and then because Rudy ended up beating them in an earlier part of the arc, people have to challenge him. And they mentioned that there's one girl that was sort of interested in them, it lined up to fight Rudy. And at one point, at the very start of that little subplot, we see that there's a girl in blue armor whose character design is way too catching to be a background character. She's clearly important, but we never hear anything about her. So it feels they just sort of dropped that development. I'm assuming it's going to lead into something in the future. I don't know if the light novel expands on that or whatever, but I feel the need to mark that I noticed her and I'm something's up with her, but I guess we just don't get that now. But I'd be shocked if in the light novel or something, they didn't have at least a few lines of dialogue and we got her fucking name by now or some shit. Or I don't know, maybe she was just chilling in the background. Anyway, yeah, this is a whole arc about erectile dysfunction, and it's fucking fantastic, and I can't wait for the second half. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your envoy of hope. Bye-bye.